Hello again, everybody. Again, continuing our discussion of starting. System does not work. A customer comes in, she complains. She says, my car does not start. You get all the information that you can first, thinking, okay, well, the battery, the usual suspects involved. Well, says the lights go on. She says the instrument panel lights come on. So I'm thinking, okay, so I get at least 11 volts, 11.5 volts. You know, as you know, the battery needs about 12.6 volts, but in ambient temperature, maybe around in the summertime, you get around 12.4, 12.5 volts. If it's 20 degrees outside, it's hard to get 12.6 volts. You'll get less, depending on the temperature. But we know the battery is working in this case. Let's see what will be the suspects. I explained in the previous video, we have a something new in this called the Theft-Deterrent Relay. In order to activate the motor, we need to activate the relay called the Theft-Deterrent Relay that I explained before to activate this part of the circuit through the ignition switch to activate the starter solenoid. Otherwise, this cannot work. That's why it's a Theft-Deterrent Relay. You need this to work. So, as I explored and analyzed the schematic, I say, okay, let me pull out the schematic. The first thing, the usual culprits, that if you want to call them that, usually in a case you always suspect, could be the ignition switch, could be the fuse, could be obviously the starter. Okay? But when I pulled out the schematic, which I always do first, Theft-Deterrent Relay. I asked her, do you have a Theft-Deterrent Relay? She says, yes, I do. She says, well, let's explore why that could be a suspect. Let's explore every possible detail before we're going to go to the starter motor. Now, I come over here. In order for this to work, I need this to work. The first place I would measure would be right here. And as you see over here, I put 12 volts here from the battery, 12 volts here. How do I know I get 12 volts here? Because I'm going right through the fuse. I did not lose any voltage. You're going to lose a little voltage if this is conducting. So, for all purposes, if I measure 12 volts here, I should measure 12 volts here. If I measure 0 volts here, that means this is open. This is blown. If I measure 12 volts over here, how much should I measure over here? 12 volts. I'm just going through a simple switch. I'm not losing any voltage. There's not much resistance. 12 volts over here. First place to measure, that's why I put this over here. I come over here, I should measure 12 volts. How do I know? Well, it's only a wire. So from here to here to here, all wiring. No voltage loss. Therefore, I should have measured 12 volts. I come over here, boom. First place, I go to the relay. Go to the relay. The purple wire over here, 0 volts. Okay. What can possibly be the problem? Now, can the fuse be blown? Well, we just said there were 12 volts over here. So if I measure 12 volts over here, but I measure 0 volts over here, can the fuse be blown? Absolutely not. I come over here and I measure again, 12 volts. I look at the switch. Is the switch being activated? Can the switch be the problem? Absolutely not. Why? Because I'm getting 12 volts. If the switch would be still in the off position, I would get 0 volts here. Okay, so therefore we rule these things out. Right? I just measured 12 volts at the yellow wire. But I'm measuring 0 volts over here. Okay, so now you're going to say, okay, this is not being activated. Okay? We come over here. Come over here, come over here, come over here. Now, this goes through a fuse, we just said, and it also goes through a park neutral position switch. Can the problem be this? Fuse is blown. Yes, it can. Can the problem be this? Park neutral position switch. It either has to be in park or neutral. Yes, it can. Now, notice one more thing. We notice that this is 0 volts here. That means this has not been activated. Why? We go over here, we measure 12 volts over here. What does that tell me? That means that this fuse is good. I come over here and I measure 12 volts over here. That means that this switch is good. This is either in neutral or in park. So once I go over here and I measure 12 volts over here, that means all of this is good. So my point being, why did I pick these 2 points to measure? Once I come over here to measure 12 volts, I know all of this is good. Once I come over here and I measure 12 volts over here, I know all of the fuse is good and I know the switch is good. What's the culprit? Now we got a problem over here. Now we got a problem. So therefore, we said in the other video, this is a module. And from basics of relays, how they work, this needs a ground. This really needs to a ground, probably through this module, giving it a ground. Could, like I said, could be transistors, it could be anything to ground this. When this is grounded, this will be activated. The fact that we measure 0 volts over here tells me over here, this is 12 volts, all this is working. 12 volts over here, all this is working. That tells me this is not working. Therefore, this module might be defective or this could be defective. Okay, well, 12 volts over here. I should measure 0 volts over here. If I don't measure 0 volts over here, that means this is not grounded. Something wrong with the module. Now, what can I do? I can take this relay, this part of the relay, and ground it, the part. If I ground this, the yellow-black wire, if I ground it, that means current can flow through this, and all of this should work. So basically, when I did that, when I grounded this to ground, I found that everything came and everything operating normal. So this module was the defect. Welcome to the world of Theft-Deterrent Relay. Now, you can't always assume it's a starter. You can't always assume it's the ignition switch. You can't always assume it's the battery. Cannot always assume it's the fuses. You have to look, understand. And when I asked her, she told me I have a theft-deterrent relay. That gave me a hint right there. We need that to work. This is what keeps the robbers away, right? From taking your car, right? And starting your car. Therefore, we need the first place, like I said, I go over here. When I measured 0 volts over here, this told me this is not being activated. When I went over here to measure 12 volts, it told me all this is working. And I isolated the problem to this. Therefore, I got a new module, put it in, everything worked. So, I hope this was helpful. And again, I'd like to thank people for subscribing to my channel, which is Automotive Electronic Schematics by Joseph. And I enjoy the feedback that I've been getting. And as always, I always look for ideas from people, for comments, how to make my product much better quality, especially the photography. And I'll be making more hands-on videos, and I hope this was very informative. But remember, you have to analyze first and not always jump to conclusion and say it's the starter, it's the switch, because in this one, this was an easy one, and it was a actual cheap module rather than a starter. Remember, customer, you do not want to make a customer come back and say, okay, well, I'll take care of it. If it doesn't work now, I'll take care of it the next time. It's on warranty. You do not want to do that, because it's an inconvenience for the customer to bring back the car, even though it is on warranty. Get it right the first time. Get out the schematic, boom, brought me right to this. Thanks for watching. As I said, subscribe to my channel. I hope to see everyone in the future. Thank you for all your positive views that you gave me. Thank you so much.